In this video, we're going to go over some of the major sociological theorists that we're going to discuss this semester, and we're going to talk about the historical moment in which these individuals were living and writing and developing their arguments. So in that historical moment is going to be really critical to making sense of and understanding how exactly they developed their arguments. And the historical moment and period that we're talking about is the 19th century, what sociologists refer to as the rise of modernity or the modern period. And this comes right after the birth of the Enlightenment. And both of those historical moments are critical to understanding classical sociological theory, which is the basis of this course. These are our classical sociological theorists. There are three of them that we're going to deal most heavily with: Marx, Weber, and Durkheim. These three theorists are not the only ones that we'll discuss in this course. We're also going to discuss Thomas Hobbes and Adam Smith, but they are kind of entry points from the Enlightenment period to making sense of our classical sociological theorists. These theorists were writing in the period that's roughly the 19th century into World War I, so roughly 1800s, mid-1800s into World War I. And they are what we often call the sociological canon. And this is just a word that means essentially that they are the kind of defining writers and defining thinkers of sociology. And this is only actually partly true. There are other theorists who are writing at this time, but it's certainly the case that the ideas that these three theorists embody became the defining ideas of the classical period of sociology and have had an important influence on sociology today. So what is this historical moment in which these theorists were writing that is going to help us make sense of that? The historical setting, again, is marked by two big transformations. The first of these transformations is the Enlightenment, and this is roughly speaking in the mid-17th to late 18th century when the Enlightenment is emerging. And what this movement, this moment really meant was a shift in how people thought about and understood their world. Science and reason become the predominant modes of thinking and making sense of the world, and this was supplanting religion, superstition, and kind of traditional belief systems that had governed how human beings thought about their world up until this point in time, at least certainly within Western Europe. So it's a whole entirely new worldview that kind of supplants the basic doctrines of traditional belief and give individuals the tools that they need to kind of make sense of society in new and important ways. And what it really meant is that people could now think freely and of their own volition and use their own rationality, use the own tools of the sort of human constructed tools of science to make sense of the world. So this is really generating for people new ways of understanding ourselves and understanding our society. The second great piece of this movement is happening after the Enlightenment in the late 18th century. And this is, again, a movement that's predominantly in Western Europe. And this is really the birth of a new type of society, the transformation of political and economic and social structures that had organized Western Europe up until this point. Politically and economically, we're talking about a shift from agricultural monarchies into industrial capitalist democracy. So there's a political shift here from a monarchic-based society in which you have a set of aristocrats who are in control of a country to a democratic society in which, at least theoretically, the people, the citizens of that country are in control of it. And it's an economic move from what's called feudalism into capitalism. Feudalism is an economic system that was based primarily on having lords who controlled the land and serfs who worked on the land for the lords. And so this is basically moving from that kind of a system into a capitalist system that we'll talk more about it later in the semester, based on a set of different things, but as we'll see from Marx, based on free labor and wages. And so this is a political change that's first happening with the French Revolution. And so this is the defining sort of moment in the birth of modernity. And so this is the moment in time that transitions away, at least in France, and this spreads fairly quickly through Western Europe, away from monarchy and towards democracy. And then this is sort of at the same time happening as this, we see a shift in the economy known as the Industrial Revolution, the birth of these high-rise, smoke-filled, as you can see, factories, where you're taking people from the countryside, serfs off of the land, congregating them into cities, into urban centers, inside of these factories where they're huddled together, producing with new forms of technology, producing economic goods. What's important about modernity, this is probably the key thing, and this is in fact the key thing that all of our classical sociological theorists are trying to grapple with, trying to make sense out of this dramatic transformation of society. This transformed people's lives, and you can't overstate exactly what it meant for individuals who were living in this period. This took people from tight-knit villages in rural areas of Western Europe and literally moved them into massive urban areas, working in these big gigantic factories. So they're going from working on farms on the countryside into being huddled together inside of these new urban centers and working in these factories. And so it's a dramatic transformation, again, of people's lives and the organization of the world in which they were living. So you really need to understand sociologists in this period are grappling with and trying to make sense out of the rise of modernity. Where did it come from? And what does it mean for people's lives? And they're using the tools from the Enlightenment to make sense of this, right? They're using science, they're using reason to try and make sense of it. So when we sort of step back from this and think about it, what we're really witnessing here is the rise of social sciences, where we start to actually see that through the Enlightenment we can study society. Before the Enlightenment, the world just kind of happened to people, right? And there were gods and there were supernatural forces that just made things happen. Now we've sort of taken on society as an object of study. We've been able to see that we can use science and reason to make sense of the things going on in our own lives, right? We have the tools at our disposal to make sense out of the society in which we're living in. And not only that, we're witnessing, these theorists are all at the moment they're writing, witnessing dramatic transformations of society, right? So now we can see that society is not a sort of preordained fact given to us by the gods, so to speak, but is in fact something that we're actively a part of. We can change, we can see it change, and we could potentially, as Marx will suggest to us, make the change for us. Right? Okay, so that's some of the key ideas that you need to understand as you make sense of these classical theories that we talk about. And if you have any questions, again, please let me know.